Today we celebrate the feast of St. Anthony of the Desert, one I believe lived in the 300s. When St. Anthony was a young man at age 18 or 19, sad to say his parents passed away. He and his sister were the only two in the family, and they inherited 200 acres of very high-quality farmland, very fertile, very fruitful land. St. Anthony, one day after this, he went into church, it says, and when he walked in, it was the story of the rich young man. In that story, Jesus challenges the rich young man, saying, if you want to be perfect, you must put aside or give away all your possessions and come and follow me. To give your possessions to the poor and come and follow me. It's interesting, it says when he walked into the church, he heard the gospel being read of that at that time. So I guess you might imply he was sneaking in late to church at the time of the gospel reading. And those words, as a young man, he felt that those words, that it was Jesus speaking right to him. And so he, after Mass, went home and gave away a major portion of his belongings and land to the poor, gave it away. But not everything yet. Then he goes back to church shortly thereafter, and there was another gospel reading, something about, do not be anxious about tomorrow. And once he heard that again, he felt it was being proclaimed directly to him again, and so he leaves, goes home, gives away everything, makes sure his sister has to be taken care of, actually helps her enter into a convent, and off he goes to live completely on his own out into the desert, living extreme poverty. When he was there, of course, he continued to study the scriptures, and it was said about St. Anthony that anytime he read or heard the scriptures, it went immediately and perfectly into his memory. So he had a great memory of the scriptures. When he heard it, he memorized it immediately. And so he studied and prayed the scriptures and fasted out in the desert. People began to come to him because obviously he was an interesting guy, given that story. So people would go out there to meet him, to talk with him. And eventually people kept coming to him, and so he eventually started a monastery, a place where other men could stay and live with him. So he became an abbot, leading and helping others in their life of prayer. Now, I suppose you could say most of us aren't called to that kind of extreme simplicity or extreme poverty. Perhaps some of you are. But even though saints, the lives of the saints, we might respond to that, well, I surely can't do that much. However, we can at least respond a little bit. Sometimes I think we hear the lives of the saints, it's like superheroes. We think, well, that's a really neat story, but I can't do that. When we hear the lives of the saints, very often we think, yeah, I can't do that much, and it's probably true, but we can do at least a little bit. For example, just sharing what we already have at home. Instead of fighting over the last cookie, you don't have to give away all your 200 acres of possessions, but what about sharing that last cookie? Something as small as that, our willingness to share. And I think, too, perhaps, example of him going out to lead in total solitude. I don't think you're called to leave your families, but some quiet time at home, some little extra time to read the scriptures, or even just some nice quiet time at your house. Even that, again, even if it's 5 minutes, that can be a great gift to God, a great gift, perhaps, even to your family. Instead of blasting the radio and screaming and crying and carrying on, maybe just a few minutes of quiet when you're at home. That might be a great gift for your parents. In our gospel here, Jesus curing the paralytic, a guy carried around in a stretcher. Today we might say a wheelchair. They didn't have wheelchairs back then. And I suppose, again, most of us don't see lots of people on a daily basis in a wheelchair. We might think, well, we should be helping the handicapped. Yes, absolutely. If we can and where we can. But even if it's not the handicapped, again, even in our own classrooms, in your own homes, just being a little extra kinder to someone in the room. We don't have to go out and find somebody stuck in the hospital. If you can do that, wonderful. But even the people right around us, some extra kindness and some extra help and encouragement along the path closer to Jesus. St. Anthony, again, even in the desert there, back to him, known for his fasting and life of penance. Today is Friday, of course. Every Friday of the church calendar, it's not Good Friday, but Fridays, used to be, probably for most of your grandparents, I'm not quite old enough, but used to be every Friday Catholics could not eat meat. Now it's just during Lent. But it's still encouraged to do some kind of penance or avoid meat on Fridays. So given St. Anthony and given that it's Friday, if you can avoid eating meat, that's a good thing to try to do on Fridays, or against some extra little penance. It's also true, you may not have time to do the Stations of the Cross every Friday, and that's understandable, but even to spend just a few seconds, I know there's a crucifix in all your classrooms, to make a little extra effort, maybe to look at that crucifix on the wall and spend a few seconds thinking about Jesus dying and suffering for each of us, or even at home, if there's a crucifix hanging there. Again, just a few extra seconds to think about Jesus, what he did for us on the cross, the great gift that he gave for us, offering up in great love for us his life, and then, of course, rising from the dead victorious, and we all hope to share in his resurrection, to share in heaven with him.